Within the Smoky Mountains in the national park, there are some of the most vibrant and life-giving ecosystems in the entire world. Those who have the opportunity to enjoy this part of the world are experiencing nature in a way that few people ever have the chance to. As much as the Smokies nurture life, they can also take it away in an instant. These ancient mountains are deadly. So is the fate of a young 25-year-old hiker by the name of John Mink. A simple metric to illustrate the potential for dangerous conditions in the Smokies would be the drastic temperature changes that occur at high elevations. Mount Lacan has been known to reach 32 below zero, an absolutely fear-inducing temperature. The unpredictable weather in the Smokies is a frequent cause of injury or death. Sudden blizzards, extreme temperature drops, and deadly storms all can happen in an instant at elevation, while the sun shines just off into the distance. On February 28, 1984, John Mink set out to conquer a 12-mile hike over 3 days and 2 nights from Jakes Creek to Mount Collins. Mink was in shape and more than capable of hiking this length without the slightest of issues. He was by all accounts a seasoned hiker. As if his pure physical ability wasn't enough, he had done his due diligence by packing and preparing properly for the hike. He packed water, food, a stove, a sleeping bag rated down to 0, a wool hat, a parka, a sweater, gloves, mittens, and even snowshoes were he to encounter snow. Now, because we have the fortunate position to look back upon what went down during these fatal days in the mountains, we are able to examine mistakes that were made. Let me be clear, you can do everything right and still end up in a bad situation in the Smokies. John Mink made 2 major mistakes that might have changed the course of his hike, but there is no way to know that avoiding these mistakes would have indeed helped him in the end. The first major mistake Mink made was his decision not to carry a tent with him. Even though he planned to make camp at shelters along the way, plans can get changed, and the last thing you want is to be without shelter. His second mistake was wearing blue jeans. Jeans are a dangerous clothing option due to their tendency to not only hold water, but freeze the water in the jeans, which can easily make them a death trap. His third mistake was traveling alone. Even for the most experienced hiker, being alone can be deadly. A mere 2 hours into Mink's hike, he ran into Ranger Dwight McCarter, who advised him of the danger of hiking alone in the winter months and of the potential of hypothermia from sweat. A damp hiker is a dead hiker in the winter months, especially at high elevations, because it causes rapid chilling of the body, which begins hypothermia. Cotton and denim are some of the worst types of clothing to wear in these instances, as they can hold many times their weight in water and take days to completely dry out. Mink's blue jeans were not going to be doing him any favors. Even Mink's goose-down sleeping bag can become dangerous if water penetrates the outer nylon layer, leaving the inside a worthless matted mess. Unfortunately, Ranger McCarter would be the last one to see Mink alive. A short time into his hike, Mink would notice snow beginning to fall. A slow dance of snowflakes quickly turned into a blizzard. Park officials noted that snow on Mink's intended trail reached a height of over 6 feet in some places. Even with snowshoes, that was going to be one heck of an obstacle to overcome. About 4 hours into his hike, around 4 p.m., Mink reached 4,000 feet of elevation near campsite 26. As he continued to climb in elevation, the snow got deeper and deeper. What was originally a dusting at 4,000 feet turned into 6 inches at 4,800 feet, and an hour later, as Mink reached the Appalachian Trail and put on his snowshoes, snow is 10 inches deep. At 6:30 p.m., in complete darkness, about a half mile from Buckeye's Gap, Mink took off his parka and dropped his emergency whistle. This action, unfortunately, started Mink's downfall. Officials inferred that these were the first signs of hypothermia and confusion from Mink as the blizzard swirled around him in total darkness. As Mink continued on the trail, he would have been suffering from a lack of coordination, confusion, and an increase in blood pressure and heart rate. He would have also most likely been in a panic in the complete darkness. After Mink labored on for another 300 yards, evidence suggests he entered a dangerous state of hypothermia. With frozen jeans and no parka, Mink lost his way on the trail multiple times. Eventually, he pulled out a flashlight to help guide the way. After following it for a short time, he lost his left snowshoe. The snow was more than a foot deep at this point. After about another 100 feet, Mink abandoned both his snowshoes and dropped his flashlight before stumbling on for a few more feet. He then ran into a downed tree across the trail that he could not get around due to his condition. That's when he decided to bed down for the night around 10:30 p.m. Unbelievably, Mink survived that night, but the scene he woke up to on February 29th was out of a movie. Snowfall had reached a solid depth of 3 feet and drifted up to 6 feet in some parts. Still severely hypothermic, Mink abandoned his pack and tried to retrace his steps down the trail. After only a few strides, he stumbled off the trail and fell 15 feet. He lost his right mitten in the fall, and the life began to drain from him as hypothermia took over. The next day, March 1st, which was supposed to be Mink's third and final day of the hike, his mother called to report him missing. On March 2nd at 8:30 a.m., officials began a search. First, Air National Guard helicopters, then the Snowcat, and a ground team would join the search. About 2 miles from Seiler's Bald Shelter, the helicopter pilot saw what looked to be a body in the snow. It was indeed the body of John Mink, who had passed on February 29th, shortly after his fall in the snow. When the Rangers reached him, his body temperature was at a chilling 36 degrees. Since 1934, over a dozen people have died from hypothermia in the national park. For John Mink, the series of unfortunate events that followed him on his hike could have just as easily avoided him. If the blizzard had shifted slightly, or if he hadn't encountered a downed tree, then maybe things would have been different. But the fact of the matter is the Smokies can be quite harsh, and even if you are prepared, they can take your life away.